This tutorial will provide an overview of how to use the Medicine Bow National Forest site that was created by the Bridger-Teton Avalanche Center, or BTAC. The site provides links to weather and snow information and is used for shared avalanche event observations, field observations, and snow pit profiles. The areas for the site are in the Snowy Range and Sierra Madre Range in the Medicine Bow National Forest in southern Wyoming, north of the Colorado border. These areas are frequented by backcountry travelers but do not have a daily avalanche hazard forecast. They are close to each other and are popular places for local, regional, and Midwestern winter enthusiasts to ride snowmobiles and backcountry ski. Unfortunately, both have a history of avalanche fatalities. 10 people are known to have died in these areas. 3 of them involved miners, one in 1877 at the Centennial Mine. 2 other miners died in separate accidents in 1903 while they were working at the Ferris Haggerty Mine, which had a 16-mile aerial tramway. In 1975, a 14-year-old boy died while he was tubing a slope outside of Centennial, Wyoming. There have been 6 avalanche fatalities since 1985. 5 of those involved snowmobilers. One of those, in 1996, was a backcountry skier. The death of Dennis Jefferson in the Snowy Range in 1985 may have been the first snowmobile avalanche fatality in the country. The most recent avalanche fatality occurred on February 12, 2022. Links to information about these tragic events can be found in the Wyoming Avalanche Fatalities by Area section of the Bridger-Teton Avalanche Center website. As mentioned, there have been 6 fatalities in the 2 ranges in the past 37 seasons, an average of 1 fatality every 5 years. Avalanche hazard forecast centers exist in the western states and cover areas that are delineated on the map at avalanche.org. The Medicine Bow National Forest does not have an avalanche center. The closest daily avalanche forecasts are issued by the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, or CAIC, for the Steamboat and Front Range zones, which are south of the Wyoming-Colorado border. The CAIC forecasts are funded by the state of Colorado. Funding restrictions do not allow them to spend funding sources from Colorado on other areas outside of the state. Data and sources of information used by the CAIC to make their Front Range and Steamboat Zone avalanche hazard forecasts originate from areas that are too far from the Wyoming border. The distance of those resources from the border limits the extrapolation of these forecasts north into the Sierra Madre and Snowy Range areas. The BTAC issues daily avalanche hazard forecasts for 3 zones in western Wyoming. Aside from some avalanche education efforts that the BTAC hosts in the Saratoga and Laramie areas, the BTAC does not have the presence and resources to provide a daily avalanche hazard forecast for the Sierra Madre and Snowy Range areas. To address the avalanche hazard concerns in these areas, the BTAC created a crowdsourcing avalanche hazard website in 2015. This site received some use during the 2015-2016 winter season. This tutorial has been produced by the BTAC to help promote the future use of this site. The purpose of this website and this effort is to provide the public with a venue where backcountry travelers can share avalanche hazard observations for these areas. These efforts have historically been funded by the BTAC Foundation, a nonprofit organization that supports the operations of the BTAC, and most recently by the Avalanche Alliance, an industry-supported entity that is seeking to increase avalanche hazard awareness in areas without a daily avalanche hazard forecast. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of how to use this valuable resource. Weather forecast links can be found in the Forecast pull-down menu on the Medicine Bow homepage. The first link in the menu brings you to the National Weather Service in Cheyenne, or NWS homepage. This is an excellent source of weather forecast information for southeast Wyoming. The second item in that pull-down menu is the link to the NWS weather forecast discussion. This is updated twice a day by the NWS and is a slightly more technical and specific weather forecast product. The third menu item is a link to satellite imagery produced by the NWS for this area. The next menu item is a link to NWS-produced radar imagery. The last two menu items link to NWS user-defined area forecasts that are specific to terrain above 8,500 feet in the Snowy and Sierra Madre ranges. These last four menu items may require a stable high-speed internet connection and may take up to 15 seconds to fully load. These combined NWS weather forecast products provide an opportunity for an experienced person to get comprehensive weather forecast information for this area of Wyoming. Links to data from local weather stations can be found in the Weather Station pull-down menu, which is situated to the right of the Weather Forecast Options menu. The first option in this menu links to a map of SNOTEL sites. SNOTEL remote weather stations are operated by the Natural Resource Conservation Service National Weather and Climate Center. These stations are used to measure snow depth in mountain areas for the purpose of managing water resources. Avalanche forecasters and the public can use the raw data from these stations to help interpret new snowfall amounts, distribution and rates, and total snow depth. These SNOTEL station maps are very interactive. The second menu item provides links to 15 individual SNOTEL stations located in or near the Sierra Madre and Snowy Range areas. These links provide air temperature and snowfall data from these specific stations. Weather station icon markers for these stations are also depicted in the map area of the Medicine Bow website. If you click on those icons, a link to the raw data from these stations will pop up. The third item in this menu is a link to an interactive map that displays data from nearby wind stations. Most of these stations are located along I-80, which is north of the Medicine Bow area. If you place your cursor over these stations, the raw data from these stations will pop up. This website was developed for the purpose of enabling experienced members of the public to post and view avalanche event observations, field observations, and snow pit profiles. Any of these three types of observations can be made by going to the Submit an Observation button in the top left-hand corner of the website or via the Enter Observation button. Tutorials on how to make an avalanche event observation and a field observation have been developed by the BTAC. These tutorials can be found in the Tutorials section of this website and the Tutorials section of the BTAC at jhavalanche.org. A tutorial on how to view avalanche events has also been developed by the BTAC and is also available in the Tutorials section of both websites. These tutorials are an essential resource for the use of this site. To view avalanche events and field observations made during the 2015-16 winter season, you will need to reset the default date range that can be found by selecting the blue Select Observation button. A date range selection pop-up box will appear. If you change the date range start date to November 1st, 2015, and keep the end date to the defaulted present date, and then hit the Select Events button on the map, Events Detail List, Snow Pit Details, and Field Observation options will populate with all of the observations for that selected date range. The red exclamation markers depict the location of avalanche events included in the selected date range. If you click on the marker, a window will appear that lists information about the avalanche, including the date, path, elevation, aspect, avalanche trigger, avalanche type, size, and depth. Links are also provided for more information, media posts, and to zoom into that map location. Please share this tutorial with your backcountry partners so that we can increase the number of observations and make the site as effective as possible.